Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar podcast. I don't know what else we're going to call this, but basically, we did the same. What was it? A week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Yep, couple of weeks.
All about it was, wasn't it? All about QuickBooks desktop and saying goodbye to it, and a little swan song to that piece of software that we know and love. I am recording directly from QuickBooks Towers itself, so if we say something wrong, there's a good opportunity that we're going to get SWAT team coming in here and telling us what we've done wrong and when we've done it. Roz, thank you for coming back again. Do you want to give everyone a brief introduction of who you are, where they can find you, and everything else in between?
Yeah, so my name's Roz Hodgson. I am from BCAMS. We are bookkeeping and training accounting company based in High Wycombe. Also like Aram and QuickBooks trainer. You can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Instagram, and you'll also find me soon on a new YouTube channel called Boss Your Bookkeeping. Yes, you heard it here first. So yeah, watch this space, all things new. We're aiming particularly at startups, newbies, how to manage those books and get them right from the beginning. So that's me.
So we got the scoop that the new YouTube is on its way. We cannot wait.
Said it out loud now, so it's got to happen.
Just a quick rundown of what we're doing today. So we are live to the nation on various platforms, including LinkedIn, YouTube, and all of them in between. If you want to talk to us and ask us any questions, we would love to answer your questions live on show. We have made this version, or the second version of the webinar, as interactive as possibly can be. So good morning to you too. I will get multiple people coming through, and Paul's there as well. And great to see you in bright and early this morning. So if you do have questions, whack them in the comments box and we will get to them. But I think first of all, Roz, let's start it off with today with a little bit of an update of why we're even here. What is the reason? What is the current situation for QuickBooks Desktop at this point in time? Well, it's relatively straightforward, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's looming. You've got just over a week. So QuickBooks Desktop will be ceasing to exist as of the 30th of June. What that means is, firstly, there will be no further support after the end of June. You won't be able to file your VAT returns. And when they say no further support, it will switch off. And I just want to pause there in terms of what that switch off means, because there may be two types of people who have QuickBooks Desktop. So back in the day, and I still didn't bring my discs, there used to be little discs that you used to get. Remember when you used to have disk drives in your computer and you'd load it up and you'd bought your 2016-17 version and you just kept that going. Most of those people now have upgraded, but it's possible that you haven't, perhaps because you're not filing VAT through it, right? You're running a charity or something and it's that machine in the corner that you never switch off. Right, so if that is the case, your QuickBooks will keep going, but there'll be no support. You won't be able to upgrade it to the next version. When it dies, it will be over, okay? Most other people are on a perpetual license now. They're paying monthly. They're on version 2021, 2022. For you, it will stop dead on the 30th of June, okay? So you can migrate your data to QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks have got a tool that will let you download your data, effectively do a data dump, etc. But it will cease to exist after that date. You won't be able to open the software, is what we're told, and get access. No support. You won't be able to file your VAT. So even if you had an old version and for some reason you could still file the VAT, the portal will be closed, okay? Like I said, the older versions will be usable if you've got that, that historical version. Okay. So you're going to have to migrate. You're going to have to do a data export if you're on a subscription version, okay? And they will keep your backup, that tool. So they'll back it up for you. It won't be a live backup. So let's be really clear about that. It will be a reports kind of version. I haven't seen what it looks like, but that's what it will be. And they'll keep that in the cloud till 2030 for you, okay? Now, I would say, anyway, go in and create your own reports, right? I would run however far back you want to go, but I would certainly run a 6-year P&L year by year. I do a 6-year balance sheet year by year. I would download every VAT return detail exception reports for the last 6 years. and save them in the cloud. Okay, so that's what I would do. But the other thing is, there's no further patches, there's no further releases. It's down to you in the next 10 days to use their tool and to secure your data.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest shock to everyone here is that realization that it's only the 30th of June, we've not got long to go. And from the feeling that we've had from talking to people who are still on desktop, it still feels like it's a bit of a shock. And there's still people who are just learning about this, even probably from today's webinar. But I feel like the only bit of confusion that people have got, and you've touched on it, was that, well, what happens after the 30th? What does happen? I think the fact that there is going to be multiple scenarios, depending on your license, depending on what's going to happen, I think that's the bit that is the most scary for people. Because for some people, when that 30th of June comes along, you will not get access to that data from there on in. It will just not open. It won't switch on. We've got others who will still get read-only access, but how useful is that going to be for them? Yeah. And I've even, and please don't do this, but I've heard of some people saying that they're going to, put it on a computer and change the date and time on it so that it never comes to the 30th of June. And they're going to try and do these sort of things. And that is really asking for problems later down the line. Without support, without the ability to file, without returns, you really do need to look at getting yourself onto another piece of software, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to move. You need to move. It's like someone saying there is a hurricane coming and you're going, we've been in this house for 50 years. No, people, there is a hurricane coming. Get out of the house. Right? So yeah, that's what we would recommend. You need to get out. You need to move. You need to be downloading everything. You need to be doing all of the things to get ready to go. Right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Don't try and do some funny workarounds to
keep in touch. So we need to move, and we have various options out there. We would recommend, or we would prefer maybe on this platform, that people consider going back to QuickBooks Online, and we would recommend a version called Essentials Plus or Advanced, but we'll talk more about that later. But there are alternatives out there, aren't there? And I think for some people, this has been that kind of opportunity to see what's out there and see if there's something else that maybe best fit for their business. I mean, we've got some opportunities and options there, haven't we? Xero, Zoho Books, Accounts IQ, Sage, NetSuite. From your experience, what are people going to more than anything else? Is it sticking with QuickBooks, or are they looking at alternatives?
Well, the question really here almost is, why choose an alternative, right? Because QuickBooks have got some great online offerings. And so why are we two, both self-confessed QuickBooks heads, talking to people about why think of alternatives? And there's only really two reasons. And they're to do with what does not migrate well or easily. Okay. Yeah. The biggest of those is stock. And so there's some people who didn't move to online because they just don't like online. They weren't secure about security. But in my experience, so I've worked with QuickBooks for about 10 years. So I had just a bit of background. I had a lot of involvement with the desktop care team. I helped to train them here in the UK. So I saw that whole, the move away, the adoption of desktop and then the move away to online. And the biggest reason people stayed was stock, because QuickBooks Desktop has a great stock functionality, really great stock functionality. And QuickBooks Online is not afraid or ashamed to say stock is not the strong suit in QuickBooks Online, okay? You can do stock. So if your stock is basic and straightforward, you can do it, but you're not going to have things like drop shipping, the whole bundles doesn't really replicate what you can do in QuickBooks in terms of bill of materials, all those sorts of things, right? Biggest reason would be not to use QuickBooks Online is if you've got complicated stock. My first choice probably would be Sage Online. I don't like to say it out loud, but it is that their stock equivalent in Sage 50 is probably the closest to what you would have had in QuickBooks Online. And then Zoho do a really good Zoho Books and Zoho sort of stock inventory that work really well together. And Zoho actually do stock really really well. Unleashed is the one probably we could have put on there as well. So the alternative is to go to somewhere else that has stock integrated, or you go to Essentials or Plus and you use some of the good online tools that connect. Unleashed is a really good one. Dear Inventory that connect with QuickBooks. Stock and multi-currency, that's the other one that it can convert, but you've got to do quite a bit of work, and your multi-currency needs to be fairly straightforward because it will convert everything into GDP, and then you could then have to turn it back on and make sure everything is in the right place. And if you really don't know what you're doing, you could get in a bit of a mess.
Definitely. And I think we're definitely going to talk about in a moment about the benefits of going online, because there are some huge benefits.
Sure.
Simply, you can attach your bank account and make all these efficiencies. But it was interesting what you were saying there about some of the options. And there is a handful of options that are still desktop. You said there, Sage 950, for example. I mean, what's your view on that? Should people be making that wholesale change now to move to online if they can get the features they need, like stock and multi-currency we mentioned? Or if they're comfortable on desktop, should they be staying on desktop?
I would say it really depends on your personal situation. So both you and I, we've trained 4 years, and you would generally want people to go online. You want people to see the benefits of it. And I don't even know that you have to sell the benefits of being online post-pandemic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It was a sell before, but no, you shouldn't have to sell that to anybody post-pandemic as to what happens when you've got to physically get somewhere to do some work and you can't get there. So I don't even think that's so much of an issue now. I think maybe it's security, but again, I don't think so. It tends to be functionality. That tends to be it. And most of the big boys, even the Accounts IQ, the NetSuites, all of them have an online. We're not even talking about that these are being desktop solutions. Even Sage 50 has a kind of hybrid. We know, you can work from it from different locations. It's not truly online, but that's the nearest thing I would say that's similar. But then Zoho is similar, I think, a bit of a hybrid. I think it's the time to move online. That would be my opinion. I can't see any downsides, but sure somebody will come in the messages and
yeah, definitely. I mean, we love QuickBooks Online, right? Like the benefits are pretty impressive to us. We are privileged enough to have trained it for this a long amount of time. Between us, we've got hundreds and hundreds of clients who use it and have seen the benefits of it. So shall we just kind of use this opportunity now just to talk about the benefits of QuickBooks Online and why you would consider it? I mean, best thing for me probably to do is just show it up on screen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the benefits here does come into the fact that if you're coming from desktop, there is a bit of familiarity there. It's not like for like in any way, but there is there's a comfort blanket there, isn't there? You are going from one to the other, then you feel kind of the same, doesn't it?
Yeah, they made it look very similar to the layout on desktop. Let me just show mine really quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
So there you go. They've made it look, the same left column, the bit of the data, the workflow kind of thing. So they've made it feel familiar to you, the sort of workflow pattern. However, the add-in of a bill that you can do in, that you're accustomed to doing in desktop, and any sort of shortcuts that you do, I'll just pull up an invoice. You're going to do the same in QuickBooks. So that's just creating a sales invoice in desktop. So Aaron's going to do the same now in online.
So we use the new button at the top, which is different, right? But it is, once you get used to it, it's a great functionality because you have that wherever you need it. And I'm just going to go and click the invoice button. So you'd see if we kind of went between the two. So here's Roz's screen and then back to my screen. Quite familiar there, isn't it? Kind of aesthetically, there's a difference, but functionality wise, they're pretty much similar, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like anything, it's just getting used to different language. So if you go into desktop, it said item. In online, it's products and service. It's the same thing, right? And when you convert, your items are going to go into the list of products and services. So that's where they're going to be. Okay, so you're used to classes in QuickBooks Desktop. If you've got classes in QuickBooks Online, you've got classes and location. So there's an additional option there in terms of categorizing what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the thing that you'll find is new or different. But the bottom, the save and new, the save and send, those things are the same. What you haven't got maybe are some of the buttons that you're used to at the top of desktop. But almost all those things that you could do very similarly in QuickBooks Online.
Definitely. So one of the major benefits of going on to a cloud-based solution is it's showing on the right-hand side here is the fact that you can add your bank account to it, right? So if I click into the bank area, yes, it's going to come up with some error messages. This is a demo account, but what you can see here is there's bringing in live figures. So at the top here, this is probably my favorite part. You've got your bank balance from the bank itself. So in this case, £410.95 and then £580.23. So in QuickBooks, and that's the value that's been shown now on the same account. You can also see on this one here that we've got 11 transactions still to deal with. And that's huge, right? Because what that's doing is it's bringing the data in automatically for you. The date, the amount, the memo, or the description, all of that sort of good stuff is just being automatically brought in. And literally at the top here, I just use this link accounts button, pick which bank I want to bank with. So today I'm just going to use Tide, and then it's going to walk you through how to do it. Each bank's got a different process, but relatively simple, right? If you can connect to your online banking, then you can connect QuickBooks to your bank as well, can't you?
Absolutely. And actually, this is where I think, in my opinion, QuickBooks need to do a bigger sell. I've spoken to clients go, yeah, we're going to move to online because we have to move to online. We're not sure about the whole bank thing. We think we'll leave it off for now and we'll just see how we get on without the bank feeds. And I'm like, no. That's like going to Florida and going, I'm not sure about the beaches. We'll just sit here. We're not sure about the water. It's like, why would you go to Florida? Just go to New York if you don't want to go to the beach, right? So this is the big thing. The fact that this will speed up what you do and how you do it. Yes, still go and put your sales invoices on. Guess what? You don't have to go to the bank statement, wait till it comes in, or log on every day and see if Joe's paid you. It's come straight through. And if it recognizes it, there we go. It will say Joe's paid you. It's a game changer. Do not move to desktop and leave the bank feed off and just keep using it as you would. It's like buying your uncle an iPad and he's using it as a calculator, right?
Exactly right.
It's a
exactly
great calculator you've given me, Aaron.
And what I like about it is that I know there's a bit of a learning curve with having to move things from for review to categorize. But once they've done it, it is quite intuitive, right? It's starting to learn. QuickBooks has even released a brand new feature for the banking screen, which is called QB Learn. And the idea there is it's going to look through the transactions you've had and start trying to categorize them for you, helping you, giving you hands. And it just breathes that whole idea that you get more real-time information, don't you, like you were saying?
Absolutely. And that machine learning, excuse me, you'll see it quite early, that it's almost like that group think almost, that, if it sees something that, I used to say staples don't exist, but, pret-a-manger maybe, that it will start, remember the first time you say it's subsistence, the next time it will go, oh, I remember last time you said it was subsistence. Then the third time it says, you've done it again. Do you want to create a rule? Let's not keep asking the questions. Let's just, let's decide that's what we want to do. And also I love the fact that machine learning can be switched off. So we have had people going, oh, I don't like that. Clients, maybe accountants with clients are just not thinking now because it's automatic. You've got settings, you can turn it off. So don't tell me what to do. I'll make my own decisions, right? So it's not that it's taken over and that sort of thing. You still have control over what you do. It's just helping you along.
Definitely. So one of the other major benefits for me is all to do with users, all to do with access of the QuickBooks itself. So depending on who or what version of QuickBooks you are, depends on how many users you can add. The great thing about adding users is the fact that you can have control of what they can and can't see. So if you've got a scenario where you want to bring in someone who is just doing invoicing for you, well, you can bring that in and put them there. But another not talked about enough, in my opinion, is the accounting firm as well, where you can add in accountants to QuickBooks so that they can assist you. They can look at your data. They can find out if there's a problem and help you with the information that's there. I remember this is all cloud-based. So not only do we get access to this as long as we've got an internet connection, which is, as Ros just said about the pandemic, everyone can understand why that's important, but also devices as well. You can use your phone to get access on an app. You can use an iPad or tablet, whatever you've got. I even filed a set of accounts and a VAT return in VR a few weeks ago, and that's all because it's all based in the cloud. So you're not restricted to get access to it. You can have access at any point as long as you've got that active internet connection. And I think that's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's so important. Over the last few weeks, I've worked with quite a few. So I still have some desktop clients, not in terms of accounting, just because they've come for me when they've migrated or they've done setup or that sort of thing. And without fail, I'm not on their server, right? So if they want me to look at their books, they're having to do a backup and drop it to me in Dropbox, and I'm having to restore it. And, all of the things that you just don't have to do now with online, where someone could just say, could you just jump in and have a look? And you can do that from wherever you are, right? Not having to use TeamViewer and all those sorts of things. So it's a game changer for you if you're listening to this as a business user and you need to get that help. But also if you're listening to this as an accountant or bookkeeper, of being able to get access to your client file, doing the year end, and just jumping into their file and going, yeah, but you haven't reconciled the bank. There's no point me coming all this way and sitting here and accountants are used to doing that, right? Because you had to go to them and then you sit there and you realize the data's not ready. You spend half a day telling them what to do and you leave again. And we haven't done that for years, have we, Aaron? But I know it still happens because they're on the desktop. Right. So you eliminate all of that.
Exactly.
The only thing I would say, though, when you're talking about users, is that the kind of the functionality for setting up the users and the limitations of the users is not as advanced in the QuickBooks Essentials and Plus as it is in the desktop. If you want that really granular access, that you grant people access to certain parts of your books, you need to have advanced. Now, just to be clear, if you have somebody in your firm who you want to just do sales and just do purchases and not see the bank, you can do that in Plus. But if you want to say, I want you to do this and have payroll and not purchase orders and sales orders and delete but not add, and if you want that kind of granularity, then that you need to be in QuickBooks Advanced.
Yeah, and on screen is QuickBooks Advanced, so you get a feel of what it is or what options you have. But like Ros said, you're not going to get that in QuickBooks Desktop, in QuickBooks Essentials or Plus. All right, so we could speak for hours, right, about the benefits of QuickBooks Online. What about, though, this whole migration of it? So just to set the scene and just to give you a really good guide of it, we're going to put a link in a moment about being able to get access to this this slide deck. At the back of the slide deck is the cleanup guide, or as I like to say, the Bible that Ros has created on everything you need to do to make sure that you've got your desktop as clean as possible before you make that migration. When you do make that migration, you then have a company called Move My Books that's going to help you actually do the migration for you. Be very aware there used to be an option within QuickBooks that used to just migrate for you in QuickBooks Desktop. That's not available at this point in time. So use the option there to Move My Books. You'll get your current year and your first year completely free of charge. There is an addition, though, of £75 plus VAT at the time of recording, up to 12 years. I feel like that's more important at the moment because a lot of people are discounting the last couple of years because of COVID and everything that's happened, and they do like to see that historical data. And my advice would be talk to QuickBooks and see what's the best option for them to be able to help you migrate that data over. There's other options in there. We've put information there. The reason we've wrote the words VAT, multi-currency and reports, they're the areas that it's not as straightforward to get the data over. Everything else just moves through seamlessly, no problem whatsoever. But you're going to have to be really careful about VAT multi-currency reports, aren't you, Roz?
Yeah, and I just want to touch on the VAT element here, because the VAT will migrate, but what will happen is that in desktop, the way that VAT worked, which was peculiar only to desktop, is that when you filed a VAT return, the outstanding VAT went into your debtors or creditors, depending on whether you had to pay it or you owed it. And that's not the same anymore. So now it uses the conventional VAT control, VAT suspense account, right? So you may not even be looking in the right place for it. So and sometimes with the VAT, it moves it all across, but sometimes you have to go and allocate the payments and things like that. The bank will migrate across fine, but you must reconcile your bank. Like I said, it's all in the guide, but your VAT must be reconciled to the nearest possible point, because it will then basically unfile your entire bank rec. But that's fine if you've cleared up your bank rec, because all you're going to do is re-reconcile it to the latest bank reconciliation, and it should do it fine. Okay. But sorry, no, but my rule of thumb is here is reports. Get your data clean before you start. Download all the good reports that I tell you about before you send it across.
Yeah.
And then when it comes back, there is a sign-off point, right? It's not that they send it back and go, we're done. I think there's a disclaimer that you have to sign or something to go, yeah, I'm happy with that. Do not sign that disclaimer until you've gone in and looked at your data and checked that it's right, because you can always go back to them. But there's no point signing off, going, yes, it's fine, and then going, oh, but you've messed up my VAT. I'm sure they won't, but check it first. Do your tidy up, do your bank rec, get it back to where you thought it was before you sign that disclaimer. That's really important.
Yeah, and I think you gave a great tip on the last webinar we did. And if I just bring up your screen, you were showing how you would recommend that they go and get their VAT data. So they go and actually download those VAT reports. And also, if they're not VAT registered, just to ensure that they have made sure that the QuickBooks Desktop is showing as not VAT registered. Otherwise, it could turn VAT on for them in QuickBooks Online.
Yeah, absolutely. So you want your VAT to be off. So in your edit, this is where all your preferences are. So go to your edit preferences and just check that your VAT is off in your software. So down at the bottom is VAT, and you'll see your company preferences. Do you charge VAT? No. So if you're not charging VAT, make sure that it's off, because sometimes you'll find that clients, the VAT is on, but they just got so used to doing no VAT, that they don't realize it's on. So make sure it's off. That's the first thing. And then in your VAT center, so if you go to VAT, you should be able to see your prior VAT returns. Now, that might depend on which version you're on. So I'm on the Accountant or Premier version. But if you're a user and you don't have the Accountant or Premier version, just connect with if somebody wants to connect with me, fine. I'm happy to do that. We can talk about that. But you want to either get QuickBooks probably will update you maybe to the Premier version so that you can see your history. Because if I go to prior VAT returns, you'll see any of the previous VAT returns that are in there. You can view them and then you can download them. It will bring them up one at a time, and then you can download your VAT 100. Then behind that will be your VAT detail report. And then behind that, if you've had any, there would be an exceptions report. So it's really important. Remember, we're saying 6 years because that's how far back HMRC can go and look at your VAT return. So you want to have all of the detail downloaded, ready.
Definitely. Okay, so before we go and look at current issues and workarounds, we've kind of touched on them already. Let's just make sure that we are including the chat. So Paul says, for non-VAT businesses using QB Desktop from a historical disk version or even Quicken, or remember Quicken, basically nothing will change until MTD is released. Just be really careful on that, Paul, because as we're saying, the whole problem is depending on your license, you may find that you're just completely locked out. So that's the worry that we have with certain clients or certain people, expectations being set. We were always under the impression that it could at least go to a read-only method, but it might even be a case that it's not even read-only, it's just that you have no access to that at all. So just be really careful on that one.
And can I just add on that one, sorry, before we got, is 2016 for a time was sold on a perpetual license. So if somebody's got 2016 and they're not that, that might go on and on. Like you said, it's just, they won't fix it. They won't patch it if it doesn't work. So, they might be fine. Like I said, I've got probably up to 2008 upstairs. If I could license it, it probably could work, right? All we're saying is there won't be any support, there won't be any patches. But if it's working for you and you're happy to take the risk and you're backing up your data and you're thinking, right, as Paul said, I'll wait till, MTD is released, then I'll move. What I don't know is what I'm assuming Move My Books will still do it. I would just have that conversation. If I wait a year and a half, 2 years, and my version is 2016, are you still able to migrate it? That perhaps is the conversation to have.
Yeah, definitely. And then Paul goes on to say a big plus one to other accountants investing their time to get clients off desktop. You're risking the loss of clients if they have to seek out migration to online themselves. And that's definitely true. If you're just like leaving your clients to just go do it themselves, they're not going to feel like you're supporting them. They're not going to feel anything else. So yeah, do try and help as much as possible to get that migration, because you're the subject matter expert, right? And if you can help them get that information over, it's going to be better for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's what we did. Like I said, we don't have all our desktop clients. They're not clients. They're people that we've helped over the years with desktop. We reached out and just said, look, this is happening. We're here if you need any help. And almost all of them came back and said, even if it was just a conversation, 15-minute conversation, some of them we've helped them with the checking their data, cleaning up, what to think about. And it just keeps you involved in that conversation. And but if they are your clients, oh yeah, you need to be involved, because guess what? Guess who's going to clear up the mess afterwards if you're not, and it goes wrong?
Yeah,
it's
100%. So great shout there, Paul. Nice one. Okay, we've talked about kind of the migration process. So if you are happily on QuickBooks Online at this point in time and you've moved your data over there, what issues are you going to face with QuickBooks Online, no matter what version of QuickBooks? Now, one of the things we will state to begin with on this is that it does depend on which version of QuickBooks Online you go for. There are multiple versions. There's Essentials, Plus, and Advanced are the ones we would recommend. Advanced is the one that's designed to be the most kind of light for light with desktop, but there are still some limitations there. The beauty of it being an online basis or an online solution, though, is there are updates all the time. So we know that there are updates coming for some of these features, but they're not here yet. So if you need to have those features now, what opportunities have you got? Let's concentrate first of all on that stock element first there, Ros. Do you want to show in desktop what they might be used to now, and then we can show in QuickBooks Online how they can kind of work around it?
Yeah, so the stock feature in QuickBooks is what you call items, okay? So when you're creating a new item in QuickBooks Desktop, firstly, there were a lot more types. So you had a service type, the non-stock part, other charge. We can still do subtotal. We can still do service. There is still stock and non-stock in QuickBooks Online. There isn't an other charge. There are workarounds. There isn't a discount type in QuickBooks, but there is discount that can be used. So the big thing here, though, is if I go and create a new item, what you're able to do is you're able to use units of measure. That's the big difference, right? So you can't choose a unit of measure. You can't say it's a pint or a grams or anything like that. It's one or it's not one, right? In QuickBooks, that's the biggest difference. You had all of this option in desktop that you don't have in online. And so if you're a stock, if stock is what you do and everything's in volumes or weights, then you're not going to be able to move to QuickBooks Online in that way unless you use something else. Now, Unleashed and SOS or Dear Inventory rather, they will allow you to do that. The other thing is the sort of bill of materials, that you could have had sort of parts of something and then sort of put them together. You can do that in bundles in QuickBooks Online, but it's not the same kind of levels that you were able to get in QuickBooks that you could have done. So, you could create a group of items here. So you create a group and then you pick from all of your items and you put them together, and it did true stock control. You can get the basics of that, but not to the extent that you would. And when you roll in the unit of measure, then you could do it much more in a complex way in QuickBooks Desktop. So that's the big difference that you'll notice.
Yeah, let's just quickly show what they have in QuickBooks Online. So here's the same page, or at least the equivalent page, as I say. And as Rod said, it's called now Products and Services. So if I was to kind of just jump into a standard product I've got here, here's a stock item that I'm recording of Coca-Cola cans. If I edit this, you'll notice that we still have a few options to put in here. We can put a picture in there. We can put categories, and we can put kind of reorder points and things like that. But we don't have the same level, the same granular level of options that we're used to, are we? Again, there are updates coming to the stock feature for QuickBooks Advance. We don't know when that's going to be. And from what we can tell, it's still not going to be like for like. But yeah, as Roz says, the only way you can really look at this is by looking at third parties. Now, another option to do this, and this is the conversations we've been having with clients more than anything, is this could be a really good opportunity for you to think about how you can improve your efficiencies of stock management in the long run. This could be an opportunity for you to really focus on stock management as an efficiency. There's some really clever software out there that can absolutely make it beneficial for you to move to that software. There's fancy solutions where you can have a barcode scanner to actually scan the bill of materials in as you're going along. You can have it so it can automatically update your actual e-commerce platform as you put the items in there. I feel like that, to me, and definitely for the clients that we've been talking to, that's your opportunity to look at and try and find efficiencies within there. And I think that is a better conversation to be having than just, oh no, I'm going to lose out on it, because there is workarounds within QuickBooks. I mean, as Roz said, there is that opportunity to use bundles. If I press this new button up here, I've got a bundle option there. I have seen some clients, and we've advised some clients where there's a bit more of a manual process, but you can kind of tick the buttons and adjust quantities, and we could kind of move the quantities around to kind of bring it back into it. They are just workarounds, but I feel like, finding that really good stock management solution for your business, or as the accountant finding one for the client, I think is the best way to kind of go against this, isn't it, Roz?
I absolutely agree. I think it's that, rather than going, can you make me one exactly the same as the one I had before? It's going, what's changed in the world, right? QuickBooks was still a desktop product. You said it perfectly, e-commerce, right? That's what's changed in the world, that a desktop product does not allow you to connect with. And this is your opportunity to connect with those outside sources that work together seamlessly, and actually take your stock control to a new level and do all the things that you needed to be doing, but you couldn't because you're on a desktop product. So I see it as a win. And we used to say that early to people with QuickBooks Online. It's a great bookkeeping, accounting package. And if you want great stock control, great multi-currency, there are programs designed specifically and only for people who want stock, and they'll update them as new things come online, and as new technologies come online, it will be in that new stock product. Why not use that and connect that with your QuickBooks Online? To me, that's a win-win.
Definitely. And my other advice would be just to look at the software you already use. We were playing with SumUp, which is a EPOS provider, so basically a till system and card reader. And if you upgrade to their fancier package for stock, then a lot of the stuff we've just talked about, bills and materials and measurements for food items and everything else are all included within that software. So you may already have software that you're currently using, and all you need to do is put a little upgrade or maybe look into it a little bit more, and you're going to get those features in a more dedicated solution, as Ross was saying. So
absolutely. EPOS Now is another one. We've got a client who's got a restaurant, and it does the same thing. You put all your quantities in, it's doing what you need it to do already. And a lot of software is like that actually now, and they're not designed to be bookkeeping software. That's what QuickBooks does really well. Then use the other software that works with it and does what you actually need that to do.
Yeah. And they all understand the importance of integration as well. So a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them will give you an option to integrate into QuickBooks, which is another great benefit of using QuickBooks Online. The app ecosystem, if you ever go to www.apps.com, that is a dedicated website just for apps that connect to QuickBooks. So I feel like that's stock. What did you want to talk about with the multi-currency side of things? We've kind of covered most of it, haven't we? Is there anything else that people, it was more to do with the stock again, wasn't it? Multi-currency, there's a few issues. Do you want to show on screen what they might be used to regarding having those multi-currency stock items?
Well, the thing was, I haven't got multi-currency in this one, and I know
Okay.
if I come out and go in, it's going to take a while. I think a desktop. That the ability to have stock in a different currency you can't do in QuickBooks Online. Okay, so I had this with a client. It wasn't actually stock. It was they were a travel agent, and they wanted to issue their prices in euros to the euro market, and they couldn't do that. They had to do it in sterling, and they had to keep either manually changing the exchange rate, so it always appeared at 1,200 euros, or take the market rate, which wasn't ideal. So do bear that in mind when it comes to multi-currency generally and items, and multi-currency and stock definitely. If you're selling in another currency, you can't have that. You have to have the equivalent. And just multi-currency generally, I touched on before that if you've got outstanding debtors or creditors in a different currency, if you've got a bank account in a different currency, it can't convert it in multi-currency. Move My Books can't do that. So it will put them into GDP. Now, whether there's other providers on the market that will do it, perhaps have a look. If it depends how big multi-currency is for you, right? And how many you've got and how complicated that's going to be. But that's where you may just need to get some outside help or look at other providers that are able to do that. Move My Books cannot.
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes as well. It was that whole history as well, wasn't it? You don't get that history in QuickBooks Desktop, in QuickBooks Online that you did in Desktop. So there's slight kind of issues like that, but I don't think there's anything other than the stock and the products and services not being in those multi-currencies. There's not that much that's holding you back once you've done that initial conversion, right? It is just more of a be careful that initial conversion.
And I just want to touch on that history because some people may not understand what you mean with that. In Desktop, you could look back at all the exchange rate histories going back in time. So, if you're having an audit or something like that, they were there, and you can't do that in online.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a few questions just rolling in, so best just to clear them up. Fixed asset item type is another big difference.
Absolutely, yeah. So if I go back to Desktop, you saw that you had the fixed asset item type. Now, here's what you can do in QuickBooks. You can create, you can have items in QuickBooks, or you can just keep your fixed assets off QuickBooks. If I can tell you and put a plug, no relation to us, but there's a great app called Net Tracker. Here's another great example of, you have the fixed asset item type. Don't know how many people were ever actually using the fixed asset depreciation. Never worked in the UK. Whether that's worked in recent years, I don't know, but it never worked as far as I knew in recent years. But you and I do fixed assets with no problem in QuickBooks Online, because we can, A, yes, you can track them, but B, here's where Net Tracker is a great app that connects with QuickBooks Online, and you put your fixed assets in QuickBooks Online, it picks them up and it does the depreciation in the wizard. It does the accruals and prepayments for you and posts it to QuickBooks Online. So yes, you do lose it as a type in here, which was a big thing if you wanted a whole fixed asset register in your software. But I've not had that for years now. We do have a spreadsheet, but we use NetTracker, and that's where all our fixed assets are for clients. But yeah, great shout. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, wholly can recommend NetTracker going forward. And then final bit of comment that came through. What would you recommend for a wholesale product construction business moving from desktop? For example, a business that makes food items with weight from packages and then sell quantity. I think this is looking at EPOS solutions. I know a good solution called a primer seller, which is designed to be very much in case of for multi locations and multi areas and for multi e-commerce platforms and multiple channels to go from there. So that could be one to look at. But I do think that a dedicated EPOS solution, your Squares, your SumUps, your Zettles, or EPOS Now, as Roz said, like find the best fit for them there. I was again just looking at the stuff I was looking at yesterday. Now with SumUp, you can have a QR code that you stick on every table, and your customers just come along, use a QR code, get the menu up, pick the stuff they need to, put the payment in and everything else. And that also includes all of the fancy stock features that you need, but also is going to give you an opportunity to maybe make your business far more efficient. So I feel like they're the sort of things that be looking at. Any tips your end, Roz?
I love Unleashed. I think Unleashed, it can be a bit of a beast if you know what I mean. But if you're a reasonable sized company with lots of different options and grams and food companies, and they have a niche for most types of companies. If you go to them and say we're a food company, they'll walk you through all of that. And by that I mean food manufacture, right? Not a restaurant, but you're excuse me, you're grinding coffee beans, and you're making lattes, and you're selling product. I find they've got a solution for most niches in the market. Would really recommend them.
Definitely. Okay, so another big topic of changes and how it goes is the reporting side of thing. And thankfully, we've got the queen of reporting here. So, Roz, do you want to show kind of on screen what they probably used to, and then we can kind of show on QuickBooks Online what they could kind of replicate?
Yeah, so some people like the report center, some people never used it, but the report center kind of landed you and gave you, what I did like is it kind of gave you kind of a pictorial of each of the types of reports that you had, and from there you could have made them your favorites, etc. But actually the reporting hasn't changed greatly in terms of what you used to do. There are some default reports in QuickBooks Desktop that you're not going to get. So, things like maybe your missing check report, but just because people don't do checks like that, right? So it had a lot more, I think, of the preset reports that you would have got, like this accounts payable graph. But actually, almost all of them you can replicate in QuickBooks Online. So all of the things that you were used to doing. So if I go to company and run the thing that we most often do is we would perhaps run a P&L or a balance sheet, and we take one report, and we're used to that whole thing of drilling down on a number, changing the dates to all dates, looking at the whole history of something. And then in desktop, when you wanted to customize the report, you'd go up here to customize. And I still think this is easier in online. You go up here to customize, and then you would pick what you wanted to customize. You had to kind of scroll down this whole list, or you had to kind of put in, the account name or something, and then tick it. Okay. And then next tab, you'd then go to filters, and then you'd kind of go, okay, so if I take the account, which ones do I want to see? Well, I want to see these, and I tick it. So that's what we're used to doing. If you're a desktop user for a while, you're used to having that feature of being able to customize your reports. Aaron's going to show you the same thing in online. Just before you switch, Aaron, what you would then do in here is that you'd memorize your report, right? And you'd give it a name, and you'd say, I want to save it into a group. What group do you want to save it in? And then you'd have your dedicated report that you could go and access. Okay, so that's what we're accustomed to doing. So Aaron's going to show you just quickly just this very similar thing in QuickBooks Online.
Yeah, so just remember that I'm in the advanced version of QuickBooks. So this has all the bells and whistles that's there. Some of this wouldn't be available in the lower version. So you've got your QuickBooks Essentials and Plus, but it's very, very similar. I mean, you get that whole list of reports going through. If I just jump into one, let's go to profit and loss by month, one of my favorite reports, you'll see that aesthetically it's pretty much the same. I don't have much data in here to kind of show, but if I just do all dates, and hopefully it's not too big a file, but you can see that it's very, very similar. I still have that option to drill down, go into those individual transactions if I need to, make adjustments or view some of the information at the top here. I have all of those customization options that you're probably used to, including an option here to customize and go through it. There's a few things missing here, isn't there, from desktop, but most of it is there that they have. And then basically it's very similar. You get the option up here to save customization. That means you can, which is the same as the memorize option, that you can then record the transaction or record the reports. And what's new within the advanced version is there's a whole create new report option at the top here. So really you can go as unlimited amount of reporting as you so need to. You can do pivot tables, you can do really fancy reports. If I'm completely honest, I'm still yet to really dive into this new creator tool feature and really get the most out of it, but I'm excited about the opportunity and the tools that are there. We've got management reports that we can go and build, and then a brand new feature for QuickBooks Advanced as well is a desktop spreadsheet sync. And the idea here is that you can run multi-currencies, you can put stuff into Excel, make some updates and bring it back into QuickBooks. These are the sort of advantages you have of having this online product that's evolving all the time, because these sort of features are being added. As you can see, they're brand new to there. So yeah. The reporting
and that's
side.
really important, because in desktop you could export to Excel, and the functionality in desktop with Excel was greater. So you could have saved a report and then you could run another report, and you could dump that into the same report in desktop, right? So you could have done that. The thing that I do need to mention, if you have customized reports in QuickBooks Desktop, they're not going to migrate across. And so it's definitely worth diving into those reports, seeing the ones that you're interested in replicating, and try and go back and see what you've done. If you're anything like me, if you've been playing around with a report and you've been using it for a while, sometimes you've forgotten the customizations that allowed you to create that report. And so you may just want to revisit those and just make a note of them. So when you go back to online, you can recreate them, because they won't come across. Great tip.
Okay, so that's the reporting side of things. I'm going to post in a moment into the chat this actual link to this this webinar slide deck, and this is what we're talking about, Rosa's cheat sheet. This is where you're going to get the most benefit out of getting everything ready before you make that jump over there. Just use the options here to go through, find the bits there. There's even a download button here. If it's not working as intended, you can press the download button there and you'll get a copy of it from there, and even an opportunity to book in some time with Ros if you need to.
Yep.
And then if you want a free trial of QuickBooks Online, then do have a look at some of the offers that are on QuickBooks themselves. They're doing a really good deal, actually. I think there's 1 day left where for 6 months you get 90% off QuickBooks Online. So do try and jump in on that one. If, though, you want some other options, we've got a link to our online store. So do go and grab yourself some information there. And then before we leave, we have one more question coming through. So estimates versus actual report is a report that is missing in QuickBooks Online and is very important for contractors.
Oh, that's an interesting one. That's a nice challenge for me, Melita.
Yeah.
So you have got projects in QuickBooks Online.
I was going to say projects,
yeah, but there isn't an estimates versus actuals, because everything that you measure against is against real data.
You're right. Yes.
Yeah, against real data. So, it's not. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
but we have the queen of reporting here. So if we do find a
love
solution,
that challenge.
we'll make sure we get it posted over there. So
yeah.
How long we got then? We have, you said, wasn't it, 8 days left, just over a week left of QuickBooks Desktop. Yeah, it's going to be emotional to say goodbye, but you'd agree, won't you? There are some really good advantages for kind of moving your business onto an online portal.
Yeah, and the longer I've been online, there's very few things now. I still love desktop. I've been using desktop. I reckon it's definitely over 21 years because I can measure it by the age of my daughter. So it's been a long time. A lot of training on desktop, and I actually helped to write the desktop training manual many, many years ago. So that's how deep I was into desktop. But life moves on, right? Things move on, and there's very few companies that you can't find a great online solution for. So I would say embrace it. Get everything tidied up. Get ready for the move. Give yourself time to learn the product. If you're an accountant, bookkeeper, supporting someone, think about their training journey. Think about the language that's different in desktop and online, and the things that you might need to look out for. They've still got the undeposited funds, which we know trips people up. So, clear those things up before they move. Yeah, it's like moving house. If you've ever moved house, if you didn't empty that loft, if you didn't clear that spare room before you moved, it was not a happy experience. So we all know that you clean up, you get rid of your rubbish before you move. And that's what we'd say. And then embrace it.
Yeah,
embrace
100%. It. And we, personal plug to ourselves, but there are some brilliant training out there, isn't there, for QuickBooks themselves as an accountant and also as an end user. So, if you are moving to QuickBooks online for the first time, do use that resource. It's completely free of charge, and we would highly recommend it. We know every person who's put their blood, sweat, and tears into that training, and we know that there's some great training opportunities for you. Roz, you did a brilliant plug for yourself at the beginning. So do you want to just plug for anyone who may have joined in halfway through? How can people find you? Where can they see you? And what's the best way? And what should they be looking forward to from content from Roz coming forward?
So Roz at BCAMS, if you want to reach out to me, you'll find me on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn. We're starting a new YouTube channel called Boss Your Bookkeeping. So it's designed specifically for startups, for those small businesses who are doing their own bookkeeping. We're on a mission to get them to do it right, to do it well, to do it cleanly. That's coming up in the future. We'll be having our own academy where we'll be training people new into practice in terms of getting the books right. So 2 streams there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I am occasionally on Instagram, but I wouldn't, very occasionally. But yeah, so connect with me. There's a QR code if you want to book 15 minutes with me, all things desktop or anything else. If you want, we do training as well online, company training for your practice and your staff. If your staff are moving wholesale to online and you need some training, then Aaron and I are available. Well, I am. Aaron maybe. Aaron's very, very busy. Maybe he is available. But yeah, we'd love to connect with you.
Definitely, 100%. Well, Roz, thank you so much for these last 2 webinars. We're definitely going to have to find another topic and do a few more going forward. But it's been absolutely a privilege to talk about desktop and say goodbye to desktop with you. Unfortunately, though, we only have 8 days left until the service is no more. So yeah, but as Roz said, if you do need to have any talks about your own personal issues with moving from desktop, I highly recommend using that QR code that you're going to find in the post that I'm about to post now. So there is a link now to the slide deck we've been using today. So please make the most of that. Please have a look at that one. And thank you for all the comments and questions and everything else that we've had throughout today. It's been an absolute privilege. And yeah, I best go and enjoy the rest of the day at QuickBooks Online. So Roz, thank you again, and hope you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you. Take care all.
Cheers, everyone, and we'll see you all soon. Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.